Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Allison Kramer on the podcast, coming to us all the way from Pennsylvania, where, she says she wants to go out and get some sun after this, and, that's a luxury that she must have right then, because, in Minnesota, it's 40 degrees, but it's not too great, but she's a bodybuilder on here to share her health and fitness journey with us and yeah, just discuss all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she is our current guest. Allison, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to get the chance to talk to you and explore this.
Absolutely. Well, I gotta ask this first off. What's the weather like today in Pennsylvania?
So in Pennsylvania today, it is 70 degrees, which is a little cloudy, but the sun's poking through. But this week has been we turned a corner from winter and it has gotten pretty nice this week for us.
That's streaking weather up here in Minnesota right now. So but yeah, the last time I checked, it was 39 degrees. So hopefully it'll be 40 by the time I'm done talking to you. But yeah, that is ridiculous. So before I depress everyone with that, because I've had too many damn people on from Florida and California that just make me just feel worthless as a human being. So before that happens right now, why don't you just give us your backstory real quick on, what inspired and motivated you to eventually become a bodybuilder?
Yeah, so I went to school at UNC Wilmington and I cheered in college. When I was younger, I did a little bit of gymnastics. I never was like super high level, but I did some competitions and then kind of transitioned over into cheer. And then I was in college and I was like, what am I going to do next? Like, I kind of always like a challenge. I liked having some structure. I had gotten into working out, but not nearly at the level I am now. And I joined a gym, the local gym that I went to. It was a Gold's Gym. There was several competitors in the gym. There were several IFBB pros. That's actually where I met my husband. And people in the gym just kind of encouraged me. They're like, you should try to do this. That could be your next challenge. And so I started my first prep. I thought I was going to do bikini. I started dieting, and then we realized you're way too wide. Like, I'm not a wide person, but my structure was not what bikini was about. Like, I carried a lot of upper body muscle, and at that time, I had finished school and I was actually moving to Texas at the time. So we decided to forgo competing that year and that we were going to try to give it a go the next year. So the next year, we're living in Texas at the time, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to do figure. Like, this is the route I'm going to go. It's more my structure. I'm not going to have to do hours and hours and hours of cardio a day to try to hit the category. I can just diet, and this category fits me. So I started training for that, and my husband was the one who was like, have you heard of fitness? And do you know fitness? Like, they do the routines, and like you know how to do these flips, and you can tumble and stuff like that. So I started kind of looking into that and exploring that. And he actually, it was for our 1 year anniversary. He reached out to Trish Warren, who is, a huge name in the fitness industry. And he got her to work with me for the first year that I was competing. So that was so cool. Like, he is like, I'm going to give you your present today. And he's like driving me to some random gym. And I'm like, what's at this gym for me? And then I got to meet her and work with her. And that was just an amazing experience, because the first time I worked with her, she was like, you're going to go pro. And I was just like, what? I haven't even done a show yet. So that's really how I got started. And then I did my first show. I won my class. I was the only fitness girl in my class, because fitness at the local level isn't as large as it used to be. And then I decided that I was going to go to North Americans that year and give it a go at my first national show. And I got second. So just short of turning pro at my first, national show. And I was like, I guess I'm kind of good at this. And I just went after turning pro kind of after that.
From going from someone who's originally going to compete in the bikini division to then the fitness division, what was that like, sort of adjusting to that? Because for anyone who's not familiar with the differences between those two divisions, it's vast.
Yeah. So I think the biggest difference for me was bikini is super popular, and it's a super not obtainable look, but like appeasable to everyone. Like, everyone's like, it's a beach body look, and it's more, it's a little more less muscular. Those girls work hard and they train hard. But for me, I was looking at it as, what does my body gonna do. For me to fit in that division, I would have probably had to stop lifting upper body. I would have had to do hours of cardio just to try to fit what they were looking for at the time. And then transitioning over into fitness, fitness is a different type of extreme for any category because you're not just training and dieting, which, the diet's 24 hours a day, and then you're getting up and doing cardio. You're going back to the gym and doing your weights, but you have to find time to do your routine and practice your skills. And there's only so many hours in the day. So just kind of managing that outside of just training and dieting, you need several more hours in a week for training. So balancing that is probably the most difficult part about being a fitness athlete is that additional aspect that other athletes don't have to worry about.
The moment that I first saw the first fitness routine, I was like, wait, what? I was like, why doesn't everyone else have to be forced to do this then? Because it's like it's so much more extreme than any other division when it comes to like being because it's like, yeah, I don't yeah. If I was like, let's get the physique competitors out here and have them do that, and then let's see how that works out for them. But yeah, that is just that is awesome. But when you were just getting into bodybuilding in general, did you have any reservations about the sport? Because unfortunately, this is a lifestyle that a lot of people aren't that familiar with. So there's a lot of myths that are made up about it just because people are so ill informed about it. But did you have any misconceptions about the sport that you were worried about, or was it one of those things where you just wanted to dive right in and see what happens?
I think I was a little timid, and I think that came from a little lack of self confidence. And part of me, I was just like, I just want to look like I belong. I don't want to be that one person who gets up there and it was a bucket list thing for me, but just getting up there to get up there and not being able to look the part. Um, I will be honest, when I first got into this, I didn't think that this is how far I was going to take it. I thought I was going to try this and like I'm going to get have this goal and I'm going to get in shape and this is how I'm going to, meet that goal. I never imagined, from my first show back in 2016 to now, 2022, that in that short amount of time that I would have, got invited to the Arnold Classic. And then later this year, I get to do the Olympia. And, I'm 28 years old. I never imagined, taking it to this extreme.
She's only a year older than me, everyone. Jeez, I'm 20, I'm 27. So, that's awesome. But I mean, yeah, I'd say out of the people I've interviewed, 10% of them have the longevity views. Like going into it, like, I'm going to do this for a while. The vast majority, it's, oh, I'll just give this a try and see what happens. And then I'm talking to them 5 years later and they're just like, I've lived and breathed this ever since I did that first thing step on. So that's just, I mean, it's a testament to the draw that the sport has for so many people and just how appealing it is for that. And I mean, just there's so many things about this sport, like I was telling you before, that like the general public just does not understand. But the one thing that I think needs to be talked about so much more than it isn't is just how much more of a mental change occurs in you than that physical change, because that mental change is 100 times more important than any physical change that'll ever happen. And unfortunately, people won't really notice that. They'll notice the physical change and they'll say, oh, Allison, you look amazing, but they don't understand that mental transformation that's taken place as well. What has this journey been like for you mentally?
I It's a little twofold. So on one hand, I can look back at a lot of my preps and just be, you know, so happy and proud of myself that I made it through and I've accomplished my goal, regardless of how you do at a show. You committed yourself to something, you followed it day in, day out. And at the end of the day, most competitors, I think, to do this for a long time and to, not have your self-worth hang in the balance of a show placing, you have to just be happy and know that you did your best. And that has something that's like taken me a few years to get there because that's not enough for some people. Some people they want first place. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, if you don't get first place, is it detrimental to your everyday life? No. So don't be upset about those things. And so I always, when I'm in prep, I try to, give myself a lot of structure. I like to study for stuff at work while I'm in prep because I can't go out and do stuff with my, not that I can't go out, but
You'll be that person having the salad or whatever at the bar and really and
yeah,
just like, yeah.
I don't enjoy it. I like to be at home in prep. I'm a little more of an introvert anyway, but I like to not get dressed up. I like to be a bum. I like to have the extra time to prep my food. That's that's my lifestyle in prep and I enjoy it. And I'm very thankful for the fact that my husband is the same way. So it's not ever like I'm just, sitting at home alone. I have my best friend here. We can still watch movies and have, date nights in and stuff like that. But that's how what I enjoy. And so mentally, I just commit myself and just getting in, like I said, day in, day out and executing the plan and then coming to the end of that journey and just being happy with the work that you did. I think the other part of that, though, is I know I struggle mentally and I can be a little more abrasive when I'm in prep. And that's something that I continue to work on because I think in the years that I've been competing, I'm, a lot better than I was when I first started. I come to the realization that this is my choice and other people shouldn't be affected because of the choices I'm making and choosing for myself. So at the end of the day, that's something that bothers me about myself, but I am constantly working to improve it.
Was your husband kind of like one of those people before COVID, even where he's like, just keep a 6 feet space between me and my wife? Then when she's like in her last weeks of her prep or something like that, such a
Maybe a little. My husband actually, he competed long before we met, and he has done a couple shows in the past few years. So he understands the sacrifices. He knows what it feels like, and he is very, very like he's my biggest advocate. He's a huge fan. And I've done I think 12 shows, and he's only ever missed two of them. Um, so he enjoys it just as much as I do, and he's along for the ride, and he wants to do anything that he can do to support me. So he does most of the grocery shopping when I'm in prep because I don't want to, and he's very very helpful in that sense. So he knows that anything I say those last 2 weeks I don't really mean, and he just tries his best to not get on my bad side.
well, that's when he's got to be like, hey, you remember that pool that you said that that you would say that it was all right for me to get those last 2 weeks during your prep? I got it. So, that's his opportunity then to at least get something like that. But I mean, with this sport too, I just love to hear like what was your friends and family's reaction like when you announced them like, hey, I want to give bodybuilding a try because that's not something that a lot of people hear.
Yeah. So it was a little, I think for me, since I was doing fitness and I grew up doing gymnastics and cheerleading, they only really understood, or maybe still to this day, still only understand that aspect of it, the routine aspect, because they've seen me do it my entire life. Like that's nothing new. I don't think that they're super supportive of me doing this. I think the physique is where they're like, what are they looking for? Like they just still don't fully understand that part of it. And with fitness, the physique is only a third of it. So you're gonna see, at any show, the physiques are so different between the fitness athletes. So at the end of the day, they're very supportive. But that's the one part that they're always just like, what are they looking for? And how much bigger do you need to get? And do you have to have 8 abs and veins and or what is it? And that's it's hard to explain because in the fitness division there's not a cookie cutter. This is what they're looking for. It's a little more vague.
Yeah. Which, if you even see like the results from the Boston Pro and the Arnold that was before, I mean, the people that got like the top 4 spots, they had like all different physiques kind of. Where I mean, they were similar, but like there was just little individual different things about each and every one of them. But I love to talk nutrition on this podcast because most people do not understand that is, the biggest influence on your eventual look out of anything. And that's stupid. That goddamn abs are made in the kitchen, which unfortunately it is true, as much as I hate that to be true. But what is your journey been like with this nutrition wise? Because I mean, that is just the biggest eye opening thing for people when they're first getting started in this, I've found.
So I have from day one, when I first started doing this, my husband coached me, and now I have coaches through Pro Physiques. I've always done a macro based diet. Macros are, carbs, fats, proteins, and it's, eating within a certain parameter. For me, in the beginning, it was a little hard because you're weighing everything, you're tracking everything. Each day is not the same compared to some competitors who follow a meal plan. They never have to track anything. They just are given their weekly meal plan. They weigh it out. They take it with them. Every day is the same. For me, I like macros because no day of mine is the same. I like a little bit of variety if I'm craving, ground turkey over chicken or lean beef over something else, or I can have a little bit more variety in my diet, which to me, the more variety I have on my diet, the easier it is to stick to. If I'm eating the same foods every day for a week, I'm probably going to cheat on my diet. So everyone's a little different in what they prefer. That approach works for me. And I think too, when I first got into this, I was, working full time and I was in grad school full time. So I needed to be able to, if I had to, pull over at a gas station, at a grocery store and grab something and make it fit within my diet. So I try always, especially now when I'm in prep, those last 12 weeks, sticking to foods that are not, processed, they're prep friendly, it's mostly, a clean carb, protein, veg, and just whatever my appetite is, making it fit for that day.
Wait, so you were starting this when you were in grad school and working full time?
Yeah. So my first show I ever did, I was 23 and I was working full time and I was in grad school at night. So 2 days a week, I was sitting in like 3 hour classes from like it was like 6 to 9 at night, and then I was prepping and practicing on the weekends, and I just wanted to do it.
What was your time management like then? I mean, even two of those three things would drive me crazy.
So that's where something I think me as a person, I've always probably chewed off a little more than I can take. Because from my perspective, I would rather, be a little bit further along in my journey and in my process than if I only tried to take on one thing. And I have, I work full time in finance. I have a lot of expectations at my job as well, and courses I have to take and tests I have to pass. And I don't feel like I should have to sacrifice anything that I love for the other. So if I can do both, then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure out a plan to do both, because if I want it, I'm going to get it. So my management is just, if especially when I'm in prep, it's usually fasted cardio. I go to work, diet is all the time. I get off work, I train. If I'm studying for something, it's usually after that, at night, and then just sticking to, these are the hours that I'm going to study. These are the hours that I'm going to train, and it can be hard mentally in prep because it's a have to. Um, but I do always just try to remind myself that like this is what I want and it's something that I get to do, and other people don't and don't have the feasibility to even get to do a show. So just stick to your goals, and I think year after year it does get a little easier, mentally at least.
Absolutely, and I was gonna bring it up later, but you did sort of flash your hand, and everyone's that watching is like, okay, what's going on here? So you had surgery on your wrist last week.
Yes. So last Friday, I had carpal tunnel surgery. So they go in through your palm, and carpal tunnel is, the nerve is suppressed and it needs to be released. And I also had my meniscus resected in my left knee, so opposite sides here. So that was last Friday afternoon. So I'm about just a little over 1 week post op.
So you have a job where you do a lot of typing. Did they finally just give you a few weeks off of that then? Hopefully.
I don't like to take time off of work. So
Whereas for me, it's like even after like my vacation, I'd be like, oh, my wrist is still a little sore, and I don't know if I can do this for a little couple more days. I just have me on the phones or something like that. Then something like that. So
So I work full time in finance. I'm director of operations for a financial firm. So there's just a lot. Like we're a smaller firm. We're constantly growing, but it is just a little bit of. There's only one person who does my job, so I love my job and I love what I do. So for me, taking more than a couple of days off, like I don't like it.
I used to be like that, but then as I've gotten older, I've realized, it's a little bit different for me. But I understand that. I understand that drive too, where it's like, yeah, you have to be in the thick of it. Where, I mean, my that was my old job, where like I literally had to be in there. But now I got a job where like literally they don't even know who I am really. So it's just like like, oh, that guy, he hasn't shown up for like a week, and they're like, oh, whatever, yeah, whatever. So
Yeah, so I like to just power through and do what I can.
so how have you been dealing with the fact that you aren't going to be able to get as much working out in? Because I know for a lot of people I have on, like, working out is their heroin basically. So how have you dealt with that, that you're doing reduced stuff? I mean, like, you can probably still do some things, but it's not nearly as much as you could before. Have you been struggling with that all mentally, or
I think for me, post Arnold, um, that was 2 weeks ago. So we found out 11 weeks out from the show. So 11 weeks is not a lot of time to prep. I honestly, I didn't know if I was going to get invited. It was the first time I ever even applied. And the criteria is a little vague. Like, you never know, I guess, unless you have been competing at that high level for a long time. So part of it, I think, is maybe a little lack of confidence in myself, and just being still so new to this level of competing. I wanted to put it out there so that I knew I put it out there, but really just didn't think I was going to get invited. So the morning the invites come out, I hadn't told my coaches. My husband knew, and that was really it. And I was like, holy F, we have 11 weeks to get ready because I'm not saying no to an invitation to the Arnold. So that prep was really hard mentally, physically. I had to push myself a lot more to get where I needed to be ready. So I 1 week post Arnold, I kept my schedule the same. I was just like, just keep it, fasted cardio, training in the evenings. You're having surgery on Friday. You're gonna have some time off. So my surgery was Friday and it was supposed to be at noon. So I got up and I trained and I did cardio. And then Saturday, Sunday, I was just, recovering. I was on crutches for a couple days until just my knee got a little more mobile. By Monday, I was off crutches. So Monday, I woke up and I went to the gym. I really just did like I didn't try the bike yet, just with my knee, but we have like an arm bike, and this is a pretty hard splint. So I was just trying to do like a 10-minute warm up, and then I did some like PT exercises. Just a little bit of everything, full body PT exercises, nothing heavy weights, maybe a couple machines that didn't, hurt or make anything worse. And that's kind of what I've done 5 days since, took 2 days off every day this week. I tried to get in there and do something, just more so to move, because you just don't want your body to be sedentary and get tight. And when you're rehabbing an injury, like, to have your knee lock up and then have to work on getting that flexibility back is just going to be more painful. Um, I gave myself just small goals to try to meet throughout the week. A movement goal. I wanted to try to ramp my steps back up, to where my step range normally is. And then, so now I'm just going to go into week 2 and I'm going to say, okay, I want to do a little more than I did last week. I personally just thrive with giving myself goals that are right past where is comfortable. So for this recovery, like, what's something that's just going to push me just a little bit. And I'm hoping, as I continue to progress through this recovery, that at the end of the recovery, it's not that I lost a lot of strength or mobility and that I'm just kind of easing back into things.
Again, everyone, I mean, this is the definition of why bodybuilders are a special breed of people, because I cannot imagine someone 2 days after having surgery is being like, yeah, I got to go back to the gym now and get all that in. So that is just, yeah, that is just amazing. But I love to talk with fitness competitors, especially about their routines, because the routine is it's so different than anything else in this sport, because like everyone has their posing where, like you have to do your mandatory poses and everything. But with your routine, you really can make up a lot of stuff on that, where there are some regulations obviously to your routine, like you have to do some things, but like it's so much of it is up to just your own individuality and just your decisions. How do you come up with your routines?
So my coaches, from Pro Physiques, I work with Whitney Jones. So most of the time, 90% of the time, I go out to Arizona, and we'll work together to create my routine. I usually go in with my music, and then I just create like a skills list to pull from, combinations to pull from, and it's usually a 2-day process that we'll put together this routine. Um, I have a lot of trust in her and faith in her that she's going to get, like, she knows what the judges are looking for. And just kind of taking that off the pressure off of myself to do that is nice. Actually, for the Arnold, there wasn't enough time to go out and get it choreographed, so we started with my last routine, and we started just kind of, I used my last routine, I got a new music track, and I started working it to that music, and then just changed combinations and changed things. It ended up being a 90% different routine over the course of that process. But that's how it kind of started. Just the same structure, at least. Like the skills changed and the combinations changed, but my floor pattern was pretty similar, and what I opened with and ended with were very, very similar. And I worked with one of my friends first, and I just was like, hey, watch this video. Let me know what stands out to you. We got on Skype. We did some stuff. Then I kind of did the same thing with Whitney. I sent her the video. We got on Skype. She gave me, critique and what to change and what to focus on. And just little by little, it evolved and it ended up being a pretty different routine.
I mean, the most impressive thing about these routines is how the hell are you able to do those when you're that dieted down and that because like I was like some of these people are like doing like one arm push-ups and stuff like that. I was like, if I'm that depleted, like I'm not even making it to the ground.
Yeah. So honestly, it is a challenge because most of the time when you're at night show, it's 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Most of us are practicing way earlier in the day after a meal. I like to practice on a Saturday or Sunday. I wake up, I eat one or two meals, I go to the gym. It's over, around noon, early in the day. I'm rested, I'm not dehydrated, anything like that. So it is a little bit of muscle memory for yourself. You have to give yourself enough time to do it enough times to where you can get to the point where you're doing it depleted. But I will say, adrenaline can take you through things, take you through a brick wall. So it's a little bit of both for me specifically. And then on top of that, just we do program for myself. I do need a decent amount of hit. One, to start losing body fat in the beginning, and then two, to just build my endurance to get to the point where, like, it'll take me several weeks before I can even run a routine full out, hydrated, alone in the comfort of my gym with no one watching me and no lights. And, it takes several weeks to just get there. So then it's just constant practice from there. And really, adrenaline helps a lot.
I mean, yeah, that adrenaline. There have been times, especially even just like pitching, where my arm had no reason to still be pitching, and just that adrenaline kicks in, and yeah, I forgot about that before I asked that question. I was like, oh yeah, these people have so much adrenaline probably right now going up on that
Ugh.
stage. But I mean, the general person would not be that comfortable going on stage and doing all that stuff. Do you think that background in gymnastics and cheer really helped you deal with that being in front of a crowd? Because for that reason alone, I think that's a reason why a lot of people don't compete, is just the fact that like just that crowd and just being in front of people is just so nerve wracking for so many people.
Yeah, I do think it helps with managing. Like, I know when I get to a show, like, I've done it before, I'm going to do it again. Um, but there's a certain level of nervousness that'll never go away. My husband always says, if you're not a little bit nervous, you don't care.
Or you're
Um,
just crazy, which I sometimes that could be
yeah,
the
like
case too.
there's
Yeah.
no emotion. But I think there's a healthy amount that kind of can push you and, like, be like, I want to show them, I want to do this for myself and prove to myself that I can do this. There's a healthy amount of nerves. That's still something even now that I struggle with. It's not even that I like feel myself getting nervous, but it's just like your body takes over. It's that adrenaline that's just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I here? And then, a few minutes before the routine, I always have this like moment of, why is this my hobby? Like, I get this, like, I have to go out there and flip myself around, a little dehydrated, pretty tired. I'm wearing this costume. Why is this my hobby? And then I do the routine and I walk off stage and I'm like, this is why I do what I do. And it's ultimately because you get this like euphoric feeling after performing and after you show off something that you worked so hard on, that you're like, I could do this again. And it's this loop, this cycle for me, that every time I'm like, why do I do this? And then I love this so much.
What was that moment like when they announced your name and you realized, oh my god, I'm a pro now?
So it was my fifth national show. And I had just been like knocking on that door for so long. There were several shows that I was, just next in line. And each time it maybe stung a little more. Like the first time I got second, I was maybe a little not upset, but I was like, man, I was so close and I didn't even know it. So little things like that. The next year I did North Americans again. I got second again. I did Team U and I was fourth, and top two went pro. And then I did the Arnold Amateur back in 2018 and I was fourth. Um, that show was just a little different. It was like a really cool experience, but that was the first time. That's really the only show that's like an international qualifier. So it was just a little different. The competitors were different than what I was normally used to. And then I went to Junior USA's. I remember I'd gotten sick, like a cold, and I was like not able to practice for a couple weeks. And I think I was like 2 weeks out, and I almost pulled out of the show because I was like, I'm not ready. My endurance was just in the crapper, and like I couldn't get through my routine. So I started going over like my lunch break, and I was like, I need to do these small segments more often to try to get my endurance up. And I think I did my routine full out one time before I had to perform it. And so I went to Junior USA's. Junior USA's, you have to win your class and you have to win the overall. So sometimes it can be a little more difficult because you win your class but not the overall. So there's only one pro that comes out of that show. I went into that show and I felt pretty good because I was one of the only girls that had done multiple national shows. So I was a little more comfortable, I think, on stage. There's a lot of girls who have gone pro. I did that show with since then. They're all great athletes. I just think maybe that day I was the most confident in myself, and a little more comfortable with the judges, making eye contact, certain things that in fitness can take you a long way. So I got first in my class and I was in class A. So then I had to go through the other classes and I had to kind of sit backstage and wait. And I was just like, okay, I won my class. Like, did I win? So it's like it probably is
That's
almost like,
just pure torture. Why do they do that to people? Yeah.
it's probably only like 3 minutes, but it seemed like it was an hour and a half. And then they announced my name. I just remember being like, did they say my name? Like, did that happen? And it was funny because I remember they said the wrong number, but they said the right name. And so I was like, but that's not my number. And so I just, I got my award and then I was able to backstage. Whitney was actually there doing the interviews for the winners. So it was super cool to be able to be interviewed by my coach, right after winning my pro card.
Yeah, that is okay. I would be pissed as hell if they announced the wrong number and then called my name, and I'd be like, "Okay, I need verification now." I go up to that judge and be like, "Listen, buddy, I need to."
Did
Yeah,
I win?
that's like the third time that I've heard that too. So I was like, these guys got to get their head out of their butts when it comes to announcing these things and getting it right. But yeah, that is great. And I mean, I love to talk also about post show blues because it's one thing that's not talked about as much as it should be. Like a lot of people do not understand that look that you present on stage is not a sustainable look. You're not going to be able to look like that 365 days out of the year. Some people try to maintain it, and a lot of people just don't understand that that's not healthy. I mean, you're not at your healthiest when you're on that stage. What has that been like for you, sort of dealing with that as your career's gone on, just sort of realizing that, like, hey, I am going to have to put on some weight after this show, and it is the healthy thing to do. Has it been easier for you to accept that as you've gotten more and more experience in this sport?
Yes and no. Like a little different. So there's been certain periods where I know post show, like if I went into a show and I was just like I've struggled a lot catching my upper body up to my lower body. And I still have, for a female competitor, I carry a decent amount of muscle in my upper body, but my legs, like it's like the opposite. Like I could not train my legs and still be really muscular, and I just need to walk and maybe do some exercises. But then my upper
It's the
body,
exact opposite of me, so I hate you already.
like if I don't do upper body, it just melts away. I have to do a lot to maintain my upper body, and I have to work it more often. I do a lot of chest, and a lot of women don't. I just need, like, there's certain things that I feel like I have to do to keep that volume in my upper body, at least to a point where it's gonna match my lower body. So there have been times when post show, like I was like, my upper body was frail, like it looked frail. By the end of prep, I was like, it was just hollow and frail, and I was like, I need to put on size. I shouldn't be this small. I think my first show, like when I started prep, I was maybe like just over 130 pounds, and I prepped like all year. So like my first show I did in like June or July, and then North Americans wasn't till September. So I was in prep for about 9 months, and I had gotten down to like 113. And I knew when I was that weight that I was just like, this is too small. Um, it's too, and at that point I had no energy. It was too small for the category. I knew coming out of those shows that like I needed to grow. And that's something now that I've become more proportioned. I don't need to necessarily gain as much size conditioning at this point is my issue, then I'm like, it's okay to put the weight back on. I can't walk around at my stage weight. One, because I don't do this, for a living. I have to get back to a healthy body fat. I have to be able to do my job and do my job. I feel like almost better than I do during other times of the year to play catch up, to make up for those last 2 weeks of prep when maybe I can't do as much work. So there's certain things like I'm a wife and I have a house and I have my dogs and I want to be able to give them more and more than I'm able to give them, those last few weeks of prep. So there's a difference between knowing it and being like, this is what I need to do, and then seeing it can kind of be a struggle. I always struggle bringing in my midsection. I have a really small waist, which I'm thankful for. I do a lot of like vacuum training to try to keep my waist small. But I haven't gotten to the point yet where my like midsection is just like lean. Like, so for me, I think that's hard because I get to show day and I finally am like, oh man, I have a six pack. There's big, like everything you've ever wanted your midsection to look like. And then you're like, 2 weeks later, you're like, it's gone. So it's a balance. I think each time gets a little easier because, as your muscle matures, as you get older, you're able to get a little leaner. You're able to stay a little leaner. You can eat a little bit more. But that's one of the main reasons I do. I work with my coaches year round. I don't like to, I don't have these huge weight fluctuations. I competed this year. I think I weighed myself the morning of the show. I was like just at 124. I've never in my off season been more than 133. I don't have huge weight fluctuations. My composition changes because I'm not doing as much cardio. You're eating more food. Yeah, so my composition will change, but I don't have a lot of weight fluctuations. So I do just try to. I'm not perfect. I try to follow as close to my macros as possible. I try to have my refeeds when they're scheduled. I try my best. It's not perfect, and it's something that I will continue to improve on the longer I do this. But that is just one of the main reasons that I work with my coaches post show. I don't want to be that person who you do all of this work and you lose that, maybe it's only 10 pounds to get to stage weight, but then you're so deprived and you don't know what to do post show that you put on 30. And then the next prep is like this miserable thought of hours of cardio and suffering because you didn't know what to do, right after a show and how to balance yourself out.
Yeah, I mean, I just compare it to starting your own business where you got to spend more money to make more money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. Unfortunately, that is the case. But talking about even more on prep, I mean, cardio. I hate it more than life itself. When I say cardio, I mean actual running. I could go for walks for forever, but unfortunately, when you become a bodybuilder, you sort of have to sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio. What is your relationship with cardio like?
It depends. I don't mind cardio. I like walking a lot. I have a treadmill at home. I keep it right here. That's my number one thing that I like to do, for fasted cardio is just walking in the mornings. I will try to get my iPad out and I either will watch YouTube videos. I love some of the top fitness girls have some YouTube channels and I just love to watch their content. One, it kind of gives me like, I'm like, oh, I kind of know them. And then two, it makes me feel not so crazy because I know that there are other fitness girls out there.
You're just like, I'm not the only one doing this, thank God.
Yeah, and I'm like, because compared to the general population, what you're doing is going to seem extreme. And it kind of gives me this, like, I'm not alone in this, and there's other people out there doing this. Then the other thing I do is I will study when I'm walking. Like, I get my iPad out. A lot of the courses that I take for work are, video content or like kind of like lesson reviews where you scroll through. You'll have you read a paragraph, answer a question, like guided learning. So I try to multitask and it really passes the time and it keeps me efficient. This prep was a little hard because I started to get shin splints, so I couldn't walk and practice because if I walked for cardio in the morning, by the time I got to my practice on the weekend, I couldn't practice. So I had to wake up and drive to the gym it was like around 3 or 4 weeks. Out from the show. And I did it consistently for about 2 weeks. And then I was like, I could do every other day. Like I could do walking at home one day and then like go to the gym. And I was just doing like the stairs or the elliptical. And that seemed to not give me the issues that I had this last prep. That kind of cardio, I really don't mind. I don't do hours of it. You ramp up to doing more and more towards the end. I like hit. I won't say that I love hit. It's part of the process. I get it. It's a necessary evil. One, I need to do it for endurance. I typically do it post workout when I'm in prep. Um, what I do like about it is that it's efficient. Like if I'm in a bind and I need to like get in, get out, I know I can like put together a circuit. I burn a lot of calories and I feel really good afterwards. But I don't know. That's just like it's hard.
Oh my god, yeah, I can't. That even now, that's making me just cringe up a little bit and just be like, oh my god. But I mean, let's be honest, you're not the average looking 28-year-old woman. If you were, especially in the summertime, as you get closer in your preps too, like if you were to walk out in public, you are gonna draw people's attention just because I compare it to being like a mini celebrity, where it's like it's just human nature when they see something that's not of the normal to just be like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that's interesting. What has that been like for you as have you been more and more experienced in this sport? Is it easier for you to accept the fact that like I am gonna draw more people's attention?
I think sometimes I'm a little oblivious, because I'll like my husband's into this too, and so like he carries quite a bit of muscle. So I probably look pretty normal. So
That
like
helps if you have a very muscular husband. I've found on the podcast, if you have a muscular husband, that helps a lot when it comes to the
he
distraction. Yeah,
probably and he so he probably draws a little bit of attention himself into where they're like, well, she's in shape, but
yeah.
because he's like 5'7". He's not a huge guy, but he is, wide. And so it's always funny to me. Like I notice people looking at him, but he says he notices the same thing. I do sometimes notice it a little more when I'm alone, walking through somewhere, but it just depends. Like if I'm off season, I feel like I look pretty normal. I'm 5'2", off season, right in that 130, 133 range, I'm in good shape. Maybe I look a little more muscular, but like you can't see the definition or separation quite as much. I'm not one of those girls that keeps a super lean midsection. My torso is small, my waist is small, but I'm not walking around with a six pack or veins or anything like that. So during different times, I feel fine. People, I think my coworkers, especially, they're always like, "You look so normal in clothes," and then we see your photos, and we would never think that that's unfair. That's probably the most consistent thing that I get from people is that you look normal in clothes. Um, we didn't know like that's what you look like. Even when I'm off season, kind of the same thing. Um, it's that deception because it is a little bit of an illusion. Like when you're on stage and they see me, I look not huge or must like, but everything's been manipulated just right. You're tan, you're pretty, you're glammed up, you're on stage, those cameras are great, the lights, the heels. It's an illusion, and I look bigger than I am.
I've always said, yeah, I'm 6'3", so if I ever went to some of these shows, I mean, I could bounce some of these competitors like a basketball, basically. Then because it's so, but yeah, it's the illusion, and a lot of people, yeah, they don't understand that when they're looking at some of these people. But yeah, just that reaction that you get in public, I've always found that to be fascinating. I mean, I even got some myself back when I was in very, very good shape, so I dealt with that just on a minuscule level. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, Allison, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding in general, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
For fitness specifically, I would love if the physique round and the routine round was 50-50. Right now, it's a third for the physique round and two-thirds for the routine round. I do pretty even keel in both. I just think if you have to have both, and I don't think one is more important than the other. Obviously, you spend a lot of time on your fitness routine, and that's the one thing that we do that other categories don't do. Um, so it's like, well, that's your main. The routine is the main thing, but I just think the diet and the training, you wouldn't do the diet and the training if you didn't have the physique round. You would do cardio and routine practice. So I just think for the amount of effort you put into both, I wish they were scored both the same because I have to follow my diet 24 hours a day for 12 to 16 weeks. And yeah, you would lose some weight getting ready for your routine because everything's a little easier when you're a little lighter, but would I go to such extremes if I wasn't being judged on my physique? And the answer is no. So that's one thing for me personally, like for fitness, and bodybuilding in general, I would say like the women don't get enough credit for what they're doing. Especially fitness. Um, it's not, maybe it's still just a little taboo. People don't understand it. Women in bodybuilding. I will always give the men's open, all the credit. I don't think anything should be taken away from that division. They're the reason that we have these other divisions. They were the first one, kind of blazing that trail for us to be able to do what we would want. But I just don't think the women get enough credit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's why I love having the women on the podcast too, because yeah, it's so undervalued and underrepresented. It's ridiculous. And for me too, my thing would be pay these people first of all, because like if you're a pro, my thing has always been you should not have to work a 9 to 5 job. Like that, you should be supported enough. Like yeah, it's like it's ridiculous. Imagine these people, like with you being married, having a full-time job, being a bodybuilder. I mean, it's like you should having two of those things should be enough. Like that should be, I mean, it's ridiculous how like that has, and like the time management skills that some of these people have. I mean, it's like you're even more impressive than a lot of the military people that I've had on when it comes to time management for a lot of these cases. So I mean, it's just ridiculous. So that would be my thing, as well. And where would you like to be at a year from now when we have you back on? Because you're such a great guest. I'd love to have you back on. Where would you like to be at a year from today?
Honestly, right now, I'm really focusing on my rehab for the next few weeks. I qualified to do the Olympia. I got my first pro win last October, and I did the Nashville Night of Champions, and I was able to, walk away with the win and the Olympia qualification for 2022. So a lot of this year is going to be, and putting a lot of eggs in that basket, just focusing on that show. I don't plan to do a lot of shows over the next year. I'm not going to, prep and then have this long gap. I would like to hop on stage before the Olympia, and just kind of get another show under my belt. As a pro, the Arnold was my sixth pro show. So I still have a lot to learn in that sense of just show day practice, managing my own expectations, managing my nerves, certain things that I truly believe get better with repetition and practice, and there's no substitute for that. And I think I have, maybe a little bit to prove to myself in the sense of I'm not a one trick pony and I'm here to stay. My first pro show, I was second to last. I did that in 2019. There were 14 girls. I got 13th. And I thought I was going to walk away from bodybuilding. I hadn't managed my own expectations. I think I did the work. I just was at a different place in my life and I wasn't ready to commit to taking this to that next level. 2020 happened. I didn't compete. COVID, show changes, just a lot. And then to do all that work just for one show. So 2021, I really buckled down and I did 4 shows. I really improved a lot between each shows. I knew what it took to get a little bit further up. And then, I did the Arnold and that was definitely a bucket list. So over this next year, I really am focusing on, trying to maintain my own expectations. But going into the Olympia, I haven't pinpointed a goal for myself quite yet. I don't know how many girls are going to be qualified. So I will set that goal for myself, and I always like to put little sticky notes around and remind myself what my goal is. So really over the next year, I hope to be 100%, healed, no injuries, go in, hopefully get another top 5 finish before the Olympia, just for myself and for my sanity. And then really once the Olympia is over, I'm really going to switch my focus to how do I get back in 2023.
That is awesome, and that sounds like a great plan myself. I haven't heard one. And lastly, before we wrap things up, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so my husband, his name is Kenton Kramer. He is the best supporter I could ask for. He probably didn't realize. He always is like, I got you into this, and now you're the one who's taking it
The
to
monster that I created, basically Frankenstein's monster.
yeah, but he's along for the ride, and he's not just oh, it's okay, I'm okay if you do this. He's all in with me, and I know that not a lot of people get that same support. Even just coming back from the Arnold together, he was like, "Did that just happen? Did we just do that?" And I was just like, "Yeah, that's so cool." We were still even even if I wouldn't have placed, like we were just like, that was so cool and that was so fun. We actually, while we were there, celebrated our wedding anniversary. So it was just a cool atmosphere to be in for that. And then just, everyone at Pro Physiques, Whitney and Damien, they're both my coaches, and um, they have just done so much for me in terms of not just getting me where I needed to be as a competitor, but mentally, just building my confidence and really like sometimes they give me, they manage my expectations really well, but they know that like I'm someone who needs a little bit more confidence building, and they see me going a lot further in this than I ever thought for myself. So I'm just thankful for that, and I'm ready for the ride.
Absolutely. And, everyone go and give her a follow on her Instagram page down below. Like I always say, though, buyer beware. You will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies and, get in shape. But again, Allison, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey with us. It was an absolute delight to talk to you. And I look forward to seeing the damage that you will end up doing in the fitness division in the future.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed being here.
Absolutely. Well, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.